Good morning. I'm Dr. Shahin and today I will teach you a very important poem, and that is Elegy written in a country churchyard. And this is a very important poem which is read in all the colleges and universities of our country. This poem is written by Thomas Gray. Thomas Gray has written this poem, Elegy written in a country churchyard, for the poor, the innocent villagers who died without recognition, without any name or fame. Thomas Gray occupies a special place among the pre-romantic writers. His poem, Elegy written in a country churchyard, is a famous elegy which marks a transition from classicism to the period of romanticism. You must know that an elegy is a form of poetry in which the poet or the speaker expresses grief, sadness, loss, or a lament for the dead. If I talk about the structure of this poem, Gray has written this poem in 32 stanzas in heroic quatrain with an additional 3 epitaph. Each quatrain follows an iambic pentameter rhythm with A-B rhyme scheme. Gray has written this poem in an specific form called elegiac quatrain or elegiac stanza, which mainly suits elegies and meditative poetry. The speaker of this poem is the poet himself, Thomas Gray. Means Thomas Gray is the speaker of this poem. Now, Thomas Gray takes death as the main theme of this poem and says death is the reality of life and no one can escape it. Everyone, rich or poor, and any name and fame in man's life comes to an end in death. He starts this poem by writing, "The curfew tolls the knell of parting day, the lowing herd winds slowly over the lea, the ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me." Thomas Gray begins this poem with the description of the evening in a rural place. When he says that the curfew tolls the knell of the parting day, he means to say that the evening church bell indicates the passing of the day. The evening church bell in this stanza indicates the passing of the day. Cattle bleed when they turn homewards. Means it's the evening time and the cattle go to their home after the long day walk. That's why the writer here writes, cattle bleed when they turn homewards in the evening. Farmers also get tired after a long day walk because it's evening time. The darkness starts covering the entire world. The poet Gray is standing in a graveyard and he feels its melancholic ambience and narrates here. While standing in a graveyard, he feels that all is quiet. Only the beetle buzzes and all the owl hoots. In the third and fourth stanzas, the poet says that there is a graveyard among a group of elm trees and it belongs to the village. He says that there is a graveyard among a group of elm trees and this graveyard belongs to the village. And in this graveyard, the villagers' ancestors are buried. Now, from stanza 5 to 8, the poet lays emphasis on the people buried in the graveyard. He realizes that these people are sleeping in beds which are low to the grounds. Now nothing can wake them. The twittering of the swallow, the morning call of the cock, even a sound of horn can't wake them because they have slept forever. Means No sound can wake these villagers from the graveyard because they have slept forever. The dead's wives and children, nobody care for them anymore. These dead people were hardworking when they were alive. So the poet requests the living people not to look down upon or underestimate the simple life and hard work of the dead. The villagers had their joy and sorrow much like others. From stanza 9 to 12, the poet talks about the equality in death. Death is equal to all. The poet here talks about the reality of human existence, that every human life ends in death, whether the poor or the rich. He says, full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness on the desert air. Here he has said that full many a flower is born to blush unseen. They blush unseen. He means to say that so many people do great works in this world which remain unseen, unrecognized to the eyes of others. And the sweetness of their hard work remains a waste in the desert air where nobody values. From stanza 13 to 16, the poet has appreciation for the talent of the dead villagers. Here we have a famous quotation, and this famous quotation is, some mute inglorious Milton here may rest, some Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood. The poet here means to say that the villagers who are buried in this graveyard would also have some talent, but they didn't get opportunities to show their talent to the world. And because of the divide of the opportunity to show their talent, they remain unrecognized to the eyes of this world. Among these dead, there might be Milton or Cromwell buried in this graveyard. That's why the poet calls them mute, inglorious Milton and Cromwell, who died without name and fame. Means, you know Milton, the famous writer, and Cromwell. Everyone knows Milton and Cromwell. They are recognized. They have name and fame, but the poet here laments that there may be some Milton and Cromwell lying inside the graveyard, but they remain unrecognized because of the lack of opportunities. Like gems hidden under the ocean and like desert flowers, they have perished without notice. They would have got opportunities to succeed. People would read their great deeds in history if they had the opportunities to show to the world. From stanza 17 to 20, the poet describes the honesty and simplicity of the villagers. He says that the villagers were honest and wanted to live a simple life, so they kept themselves away from the crowd of the cities. They liked peace and honesty, which were true to them. But no doubt, their simple life marked some memories, like the tombstones were simple and their language was ordinary, and that's why truth lies in their memory. From stanza 21 to 24, the poet expresses his tribute to the dead villagers who rest in the graveyard without any recognition. He sings the discipline and morality which these villagers had. They died in the care of a loving person, and they closed their eyes with prayers with an innocent heart. One day, an innocent soul may come and inquire after the dead one out of curiosity. From stanza 25 to 29, the poet imagines his own death, who one day will rest in the graveyard. He says that if someone will ask about the death of the poet and resting about his in the graveyard, the other One will reply that the poet was a free-spirited person who went to the mountains in the morning and also sometimes stood under the beech tree. So, besides it, he sometimes, muttering his fancies, went to the brook. And finally, the villagers would say that he missed seeing the man one day because he would be no more in this world. Then the villager would see the funeral procession and how the poet would be buried in the graveyard. So in these stanzas, the poet had shifted from the mourning and lamenting the death of the villagers to his own upcoming death that is true to human existence. From stanza 30 to 32, in the last stanzas, the poet writes his epitaph. He imagines that after his death, people will read his epitaph in this way. Here lies the young man whose life was full of difficulties and devoid of any happiness. Knowledge was only wealth, but he was not popular. He spent his life in miseries and wished for a friend to support him. He spent his life like any other ordinary man. All that he did lies with him, close to God in the lap of the earth. Means here he is imagining about his own death, that how people will remember him. Means people will remember him as a person whose life was full of difficulties and pain, and that was devoid of any happiness, and knowledge was only his wealth. Means he was very much devoted to achieve the knowledge. So overall, this poem is an elegy for the poor villagers who die with no recognition. They are not famous, but they are honest. So the poet has written this elegy as a tribute to the innocent and simple villagers. Thank you.